Hello and welcome to how to develop your Gravitas. We are starting a little bit early because we're going to make this quite a bit different and what I hope will be quite a rewarding experience for you. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Colin Gautrey, and what we're going to try and do differently this time, I mean, it's a shame I didn't have a chance to sort of fire out and warn you that this is coming, but I'm not going to be the one answering all the questions today. What I want to do is to make this into as much of a development experience as possible for you guys so that you can get something really tangible out of this. So if you've attended my webinars in the past, this is going to be quite a departure. I mean, hopefully we will still be conveying a lot of really good, useful information. But what I want to do is to get as much action and activity and engagement from you as we possibly can. So what I want to do is to actually explain a little bit more about what we're going to be doing and how you can actually get something special out of that, because I think Gravitas is something that you've got to experience, you've got to get involved with in order to be able to understand what you need to do for the best. So the idea over the next hour is to, or 3/4 of an hour or so, is to get you to do a couple of exercises. So hopefully you've got to hand a pen and a piece of paper or a notebook, because we're going to begin with going through some examples and looking at what Gravitas actually is, but more importantly what you view it as, what you see in your environment, because as I'll explain in a moment, that's what really counts. But really we need to then start to turn that into, so what are you going to do differently? Because I'm assuming that you've come along here today to learn something more about how to improve the presence you have in your work environment, improve your Gravitas, or at least to understand what that actually means. So we wanted to be turning it into some action as well. So what I'm going to ask you to do is also then start to learn things that you are going to do differently. And partly that is going to be me sharing, but also I want you to be sharing, and we will read out some of the things, all anonymous, that you are putting in, so that we can make this, I mean, it's a reasonably small group, but we can actually get more contributions from you as well. And in the process, hopefully you'll come up with some specific questions that you want to put to me. And I've also got a colleague on the call, David Wilson, who's going to be watching for the things that I miss along the way so that we can enrich the whole experience. And as a reward, what I am going to do, and this is a little bit of showing how much we're trying to innovate here, is what I want your engagement. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you're thinking about all of this, to the extent that the most engaged person during this session, I will be offering a Skype coaching call on Gravitas. So we will be able to connect up online over the Skype and talk through what you've learned from this and what you're going to be doing differently. And you can then privately ask me the questions that you haven't thus far asked and that you need to. So the most engaged person will get that. And then right the way towards the end, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how you can maximize your impact. So I'm just going to pause for a moment and just check where we are, because what I want to know to start off with, and this is a game where I'm going to be, well, you've probably heard all about me and where I come from, so I'm not going to worry about that bit. But what I want to know now, and I'd like to hear your contributions in the chat log or through the question box, is why Gravitas is so important. There's a lot of people signed up for this session, and I'd like to hear from you now why you believe having Gravitas, developing Gravitas is important. So come on, get those chat boxes going, and then we can sort of share anonymously some of the things that you're saying. I've got some particular views, but I want to hear from you as well, because it's really important that you engage with this. So if you could just pop in your questions, your comments and reactions to what I'm just saying. And I've lost my chat box now. Oh, here we go. It helps to influence stakeholders. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I need to be able to better draw people to me when conducting business, Erin. And that's a really important thing because, gravitas and presence is about not so much about us, but about how others are responding. And I think, Erin, you've really sort of hit a very important point there that, it's about sort of getting a different reaction from other people and drawing people there. We've got another comment here. Personal presence makes you stand out and hopefully still fit in. Thank you, David, for that one, because that is a really important point. Because, on another course we're doing all about reputations, it's about that delicate balance between making an impact but also not distancing yourself too far from other people. But I'm noticing we've got some comments coming through. Any more comments on why you believe gravitas is an important thing to develop, or why you want to develop more gravitas? Just a couple more comments and then I can start to share some of the thoughts that I've got. Again, it's about being noticed, which is, I think, a really important one. And I think it's also about things like career progression. I've seen it a lot in the coaching world where you get to a certain position and you're doing a really good job, and then the boss turns around and says, yeah, but if you want to get promoted, you need more gravitas. You need to be able to sort of fit in with us seniors a little bit better. And I wonder, and again, put it into the question box, has anybody heard things like that where they've been told, if you want to get on here, you need to have more gravitas? Okay, there's a few yeses coming in. Yeah. And I think it's an important thing because, as we'll see in a moment, I'm going to sort of turn now to, well, what is it? And if you like, there's a bit of an engagement prize if you can tell me through the question log why you think I chose the trees. I'll come back and answer that in a moment. So please do put your thoughts and ideas on why the trees are in this position. But I want to turn now to the first exercise, which is to get a piece of paper, draw a line in the middle. And I think what I'd like you to do is to put a title at the top of the left-hand side saying disaster, and on the right-hand side, perfection. And what I want you to do over the next sort of 10 to 15 minutes as we're talking, as I'm sharing your contributions out, what I'd like you to be doing is to note down examples of role models who you believe on the left-hand side are making a very bad impression. They're not actually getting their sense of gravitas. They've got no presence. They're not really demonstrating what you believe gravitas to be. So they're a disaster when it comes to gravitas. And I want you to note down observations, maybe thinking of a particular individual, of what they were doing that made you think that they were a disaster when it comes to gravitas. And hopefully that's not you, but I want you to sort of come up with as many examples as you can. And again, I will be asking later for you to share some of those. And on the right hand side, think of somebody who is really, really good, has got what you believe to be gravitas in spades. They've got loads and loads of it. And again, thinking about that individual as I'm talking and as we're sharing, I want you to note down things that you notice them do. What is it that they're saying? What is it that is about them that creates that notion in your mind? As Erin was saying earlier, this is about what other people are thinking about you as well. But note down the examples, because that during this exercise will help to give you some ideas about what you can do going forward. But I want to turn now to what is gravitas and share some quotes and some examples, because I have done quite a bit of work on this over the years, but looking at it and I think getting across what this is really all about. When you hear the term gravitas, most people seem to think about seriousness, gravity. What is it? It is something that is really quite sober and solemn, and if you look at the definitions, that's usually what comes out. But in a business context, in a modern day contemporary organizational context, it's not quite like that. Another one that I came across which really did make me smile, which sort of strikes at the heart of some of the things that you need to be doing and getting good at, is actually how you appear to others. Because as this quote is saying, wearing a full clown suit and makeup is no way to get across gravity. But it still, for me, doesn't sort of portray what gravity really is, or the way you need to, in the business context or in the organizational context, conceptualize what gravity is. But I'm going to pause for a moment and again dive over to see what you're saying, because as well as writing down examples, could you tell me what you believe gravitas actually is, and maybe give your definition before I move over and start to share what I think, because it's important to conceptualize in your own mind what is actually going on here. So, if I could have some contributions, that would be wonderful. Okay, so what is the definition of gravitas? Oh, just catching up on some old comments. You stand out in the forest. That's a good one. Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Actually, the reason for the trees, please do put your comments in on what gravitas is. But yeah, the reason for the trees was about substance, really, and strength, and being very robust and firm, yet still a little bit supple. So that was what the picture meant for me. So yeah, if you could then sort of put in what is gravitas. There's a good question. What is gravitas? That's coming in from Judith. How would you recognise it? Well, how would you recognise it? So remember the exercise. I want you to be thinking about it. Can everybody now put in one example of something that they would notice about their model of perfection that might indicate they've got gravitas? Go on, just one thing. We're only a fairly small group, but perhaps we can have some contributions from people who haven't yet stepped into the fray. So give me an example of something that might indicate somebody's got gravitas. Come on, you've all been around for a little while. I don't know exactly how long you've been around, but probably a little while. Come on, put in the comment box, in the question box, some ideas on what you believe gravitas is. Oh, brilliant. What I've realised is I've not been scrolling down, so they carry themselves. Thank you, Judith. There is a certain element of poise that is really, really important. Gravitas in business is a combination of charisma, wisdom, and integrity. Oh, love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you. And earning respect. That's a really good one. I like that one, Caroline, because this is about, as I said before, making that impression with other people. And I think respect is probably a better word than being liked. So I think that's really good. Taking up ownership is another thing. Thank you, Palav. That's and I think taking responsibility. I put this sort of responsibility as a really important one. But coming back to the definitions again, there's a definition that I've just put up now about the importance of manner and the feelings of respect and trust in others. And I think that's really important because it's looking at that other side. But for me, this is still not good enough. So again, keep adding more to the comments box, the question box. And if you've got any questions at this point, please do fire them in and we'll answer them as we go. But what I'm looking at now is looking at my definition. A working definition for gravitas is people believe that you are perfectly capable of fulfilling your role, come what may, with ease. And there is a lot to this. There are a lot of different elements. I mean, the first thing is people. And I'm presuming that you're going through this exercise wanting to improve the impression that you create with others, the way you are, sort of regarded by other people. But what people? I think that's a really important element of this because you can't be all things to all people. So when you want to develop gravitas, it's important to identify who with. Once you do that, you can then start to work out and begin to see, well, what would they regard gravitas to be? Now, I said earlier on about this whole thing about the boss telling you, hey, you've got to have more gravitas before you can be promoted or before we'll let you sort of stand up at these meetings and things like that. And what often happens is, well, what do you mean by that? And the boss doesn't seem to know. It's almost like people have it or they don't, but nobody can really pin it down. But you have to pin it down if you want to get it. So you've got to actually start to observe what is going on in the environment so that you can start to decode what it will take for you to be able to demonstrate the sort of gravitas that they're talking about. This whole thing about being perfectly, and please do put in the, I'm going to have lean over and have a look at the question log in a moment. Please do put your reactions to this in as well, and I'll read a few of those out in a moment. But this whole thing about being perfectly capable, being absolutely right for the job is really, really important because I think, and somebody said about, the movements and fluidity and confidence and things like that. I think that's what it really is. In a business context, in an organisational context, being well suited so that you can comfortably handle anything that is thrown at you. Some of that has to come via experience, but some of it is also something that you've got deep inside of you that you really know about. The other thing here is about the role, and it's what other people are expecting. I didn't put expectations into this for a very good reason, because other people might be expecting you to do something that you're not intending to do or haven't been asked to do. But you do need to bear that in mind, that it's other people looking at you, and what they're really looking for is, have they got the trust in you to do what you need to do in order to be able to fulfill your roles, your responsibility, and doing it with ease. And I think that's a really important point. So I'm just going to pause there because I want to hear what your reactions are to this. So if you haven't already done, can you please tell me what you think of that definition, any reactions you've got to it, and maybe how you feel about it? Put those into the question log. Is that a good definition? Can you understand it? Or rather, how are you reacting to it? Is it something you feel you can agree with? Okay, we've got other people coming in saying, yeah, no problem. Okay, well, what I'm going to do now is just slightly move on, because I want to be talking now about, well, getting into some of the detail. And some of the detail, and again, please do make sure it's a great definition that sums up, in one sentence. Okay, thanks, Scott. Agree. Anybody disagree? I mean, feel free to disagree with me. Implicit person handle. Yeah, and one of the things that I'm probably going to be jumping ahead now, but I want to say this right now, is it's really important to recognise that gravitas is also contextual. It depends on where you are and the circumstances, and what, in a way, what that role or what that expectation is. Because a very good friend of mine in New York has huge amounts of gravitas in the boardroom. She's been there a long time. She knows all the individuals. She's got a good relationship with most of them, not all of them, but quite a number of them. And no matter what happens, she's cool, calm, collected, and just deals with it. Yeah, so she's got a lot of gravitas there. Remember, don't forget to be putting down your examples on your role model exercise. But when she goes down into the metro, she's like a quivering wreck. And it was quite an interesting observation. She was petrified of going into the metro, really, really bad, physically reacting to the idea, just the idea of going down there. And it occurred to me, well, she doesn't know what to do down there. If somebody approaches her in a hoodie or something like that, she doesn't know how to respond, and she doesn't know how to react. And that observation and that recollection made me think, well, hang on, this is the same with, gravitas, and when you're actually out there starting to get good at what you're doing, it's a natural process that you've got to become more and more familiar with your environment, more and more practiced at dealing with what's coming at you, and dealing it with confidence and comfort, and finding that an easy thing to do. And I think that's the key, and it strikes at the nub. So many people that I've met over the years say that you can fake it until you make it. So many people have said you just get on and do it, and it will get there in the end. But I really do want to actually stress that it's something that you've got to study and make a determination about, what you're going to do and how you're actually going to get there. I'm just looking at some of the comments, and Judith, we've got quite a few coming through. It depends on what impact is on the come what may. And I think what was in my mind when I put come what may in there is that regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the events, you as an individual can take it in your stride. So not get too, I suppose, disturbed or discomfited or knocked off balance. So somebody with real gravitas, in my view, and it's important that you contextualize it into your environment and the people that you need to believe you've got gravitas with. But in my personal view, those people are very steady, very calm, very, they're not going to sweat. They're not going to worry. They're quite relaxed and easygoing. It's okay to ask for help. I think that's an interesting one, Judith, because is it okay to ask for help if you are displaying or wanting to display lots of gravitas? Do you know what? I think I'm going to maybe surprise a few people, but I think probably no. And that's not to say that you don't recognize where your limitations are. But what I'm trying to get across and convey here is that if you want real gravitas, again, in my model of the world and based on what I believe gravitas is, you need to make your own decisions about this. I think you've got to actually be so confident that you can work it out, maybe getting some input, not help, but other people's views. So collecting it. Once you've got all the information, then you make a decision and you move on. Asking for help is almost conveying, I don't know the answer here. I don't know what to do in this situation. And potentially, I don't even know how to get to an answer. And so I think personally, at the very least, you need to be confident on your decision-making processes, confident on your analytical processes, say, okay, I don't know right now what to do, but I can sure as hell work it out, and I will be able to work it out quite quickly. This is the information that I need. These are the people I need to talk to. And then I will be able to make a decision, and that's a very personal view. But please do react to that, Judith, and respond if you think that is different from your particular view, and that's fine, because it's, as I say, it's all about what is going to work in your environment. So again, keep the examples coming in, keep the examples going down on your piece of paper. Couldn't you get help from outside your main circles? Karen, yeah, I think that's a different one, because remember I said about people, and it depends who you want to believe you have gravitas. When you go home and you talk to your partner, your husband, your wife, or whoever, that's outside of that environment, and I think that's then fine, because you're not necessarily trying to create the same impression with those people in another circle. Mentors could be another example of where you could go to get help, and I suppose what I'm thinking about is, don't make it such a public thing that you're a quivering wreck and you don't know what to do. This is about displaying the utmost confidence that you can actually get done what you need to get done. Just reading a few more. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Judith. It's great to see you coming in so heavily. Someone looking at other industries, how somebody else might go about solving it. Again, Karen, yeah, that's the whole point about benchmarking, isn't it? And the technique that we learn in the MBA is about going and studying other industries, not other companies in our industry. But the interesting thing is, and I've noticed this over the years, is that different companies develop a different notion of what gravitas is, or rather what they require of people at very senior levels. And that's what I'm saying you've got to start to decode. Okay, so I'm really enjoying this. Hadn't thought of that before. But I agree with it. Thanks, Caroline. That's and really, this is about you guys internalizing it, because you're the ones who've got to make the decisions about what you're going to do to develop your gravitas. So let me just share another. I'm going to close down the chat box now and sort of share some of the ideas, because as you're decoding it, some of the things you've got to look at are voice, tone, pitch, pace, and volume. That can make a big difference between how confident somebody appears, what it is that they are portraying to other people. And I'm not holding myself out as an exemplar on this particular point. I talk too quickly. Luckily, I've talked enough to probably be able to communicate in a fairly coherent way, in an articulate way, hopefully even an eloquent way, but I'll leave you to be the judge of that. But I do talk too quickly. What I notice about people who are generally perceived to have gravitas is they're pretty calm, they're pretty relaxed, they've got all of the information that they need, they're in control of the situation, and they don't need to gabber about, they don't need to blab, they don't need to keep filling all of the spaces. They're just quite cool and comfortable, and you will notice a lot of that. And I dare say, based on the people that I've worked with and the conversations that I've had with people who are looking to make a stronger impression, improve their reputation, this whole thing about slowing down the voice, smoothing it down. That's not to say you don't communicate high levels of emotion, but you do it in a very controlled and deliberate way. Those sort of things tend to improve the perception of having gravitas. words and phrases make a huge difference in my view in terms of what other people are thinking about, the way you are coming across. And what I notice a lot of, particularly people who are moving up the scale, moving up the ladder, there's a lot of hedging their bets in their dialogue, in their language, in the way they are talking about people. So maybe, or I'm not sure, we'll have to find out. People with gravitas are very definitive. They're very firm. They're very clear on what it is they know. They may also be very clear on what they don't know, but they'll certainly be able to tell you how they're going to answer that or how they're going to get to it. There will be very little ambiguity in what they're saying, and they will use it in quite a succinct way. So being very positive, being very affirmative, being very firm, I think, is a thing that generally gives people the sense of confidence in you to fulfill your obligations, to fulfill your role. And I think that's really important. And please do, I'm going to go over to the questions box in a moment. If you've got any questions, specific questions you want to ask at this stage, please do pop them in, and hopefully I'll try and keep them quite short, because I can only see one line on the question box at the moment. But please do keep, and also examples from either the disasters when it comes to gravitas or the exemplars, the people. So the things that you're recording on the paper there. Posture and movement is a really key one. People with gravitas tend to move in quite a measured way, in quite a fluid way. I remember one guy I was coaching over in Switzerland, he got promoted, and when we were having the coaching session after his promotion, I noticed that he ran up the corridor to meet me. And he was a couple of minutes late, but he was in a bit of a fluster. He was waving his arms around and his folder and what have you, and he came rushing up, unlocked his office door, and in we went. And anyhow, so give me some feedback. How do I come across to other people? And I said, you've got to slow down, mate. Because people who are really confident perhaps don't need to rush, because they've done what they've needed to do. If they're late, then they're late because they've been doing something else. And do they really need to run to a meeting with a mere coach? Or, I know I'm very important, but hey, but the point is, it's about demonstrating that collectiveness, that you've got everything under control, and by having fluid moments, by not rushing about, I think you're making a big difference. What I've not got on this slide, but it is really important, is the sort of clothes that you wear. You've got to look the part as well. So based on expectations, based on the way people dress within your environment, you've got to be able to look right. And this is not about power dressing or anything like that, but it's about, I think, studying the next level up, if that's where you're aspiring to get to, and observing what they're wearing, the way they're wearing it, and what they're doing. I think is a really important point. I mean, another interesting coaching conversation I had with somebody a number of years ago, we were working on his brand and how he was coming across and the impression that he was making, because he wanted to get promoted, and after we got going, I started asking him lots of questions about where he wanted to make the impression, where he wanted to sort of convey that sort of senior level executive presence, for want of a better term. And he said, well, in London instead of Berlin. And so what do they wear in London? I said, well, do you know what, I haven't been there lately. He said, well, I thought you were going to be able to tell me. And I said, no, the point here, Steve, is that you've got to work it out for yourself, what works in the environment where you wish to make a given impression, a given sort of brand or sense of presence. And it can change from even different areas in London, go about things in different ways. And part of this is culturally. But I'm afraid you've got to tune into it, because if you get that wrong, if, for instance, you think gravitas is about being very solemn and serious and, not laughing or joking or anything like that, and you go into a city firm where they're young, they're dynamic, they're quite entrepreneurial, you'll be laughed at. You won't get anywhere with that form of gravitas. For them, it's much more about charisma and enjoyment and fun, but still doing the job and taking everything in their stride, but being able to do it with other characteristics as well. And you've got to work that one out for yourself. There's no way I can tell you what that actually means. So I'm going to just pause for a moment, because I want to see what you've been saying, and please do come in with the questions. And hopefully, David is quite quiet over there, so hopefully I've not missed too much yet. But if there is anything poor temperament, fidgety, yeah, inconsistent, insecure. Who was that? Anne, thank you very much for that. I mean, that's a really good comment, because looking at the antithesis of the person with gravitas, what fidgeting is doing is showing a lack of control, showing potentially a lack of confidence or control of the situation. Somebody who is really well able to deliver on their role, if they're getting frustrated by the proceedings and what, they'll intervene. They won't just sit there playing with their pen or pulling their hair out. They'll do something about it. And they'll say, well, look, we're not going where I need this to go. It doesn't seem like I'm required at this particular meeting. I'll see you next week. Joe, can you just give us a call and let me know what happened? And then they'll be out, which may sound a bit strong, but somebody with high levels of confidence, high level of capability to do, they won't put up with the stuff that is annoying them. They won't put up with the things that are frustrating them. They'll glide through it. And getting there is easier said than done. But somebody who is not doing all of that is definitely showing the disaster zone. Quiet. Oh, I like that. Quiet voice. Karen, thank you. Quiet voice and ending sentences with a questioning tone. What that does, and some cultures are a little bit like that in the way their language works, but everything's got to be, I think, in my view, quite crisp, quite deliberate, as if you've been thinking about it for weeks and now you're ready and you just deliver it, even if you are thinking it up off the top of your head. And I think to convey that level of confidence in what you are doing, you don't need to be ending anything with a question unless you're demanding answers from other people. And demanding, I use it with a bit of a caveat there, because I think you can be demanding in a lot of different ways. So asking a question of other people rather than asking a question of what the bloody hell are we going to do here, or I'm not quite sure, is showing that element of doubt, and potentially that is creating some uncertainty in the minds of other people. Okay, somebody's just popped out. So the ability to adapt in a big party with gravitas. Scott, thank you for that one. And I think that is absolutely right, because this isn't generally when you're out there with people, it's in big groups, it's in big meetings, sometimes social. Well, the further up you go, the more social it actually becomes, certainly in my experience. But even in business meetings, you've got to make a one-to-many impression, which means you need to get really comfortable with managing the chaos or fluidity of a social interaction where there are apparently very few rules, but you've got to be able to do that with grace, with panache almost, and almost help other people to feel comfortable and at ease. And I think somebody with gravitas is really good at making other people feel comfortable. Other people feel assured that they're in safe hands, which I think strikes at the heart of unflappable in any situation, Chris. That's an interesting point, Chris, because being unflappable in any situation, I think, is what I don't want you to go away with is the view that somebody with gravitas shouldn't display any emotion. And I was on a webinar earlier on where we were talking about office politics and what is going on there, and I was trying to get across the point that when something happens in your environment, what you've got to be able to do, almost with lightning speed, is be able to analyse what's going on in a very clinical way, not react in an emotional way, or not process in an emotional way. And I think the person with gravitas is somebody who will tick, 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 okay, right, this is what is happening, okay, and this is what I'm going to do. Right, whatever, and then potentially start to display some emotion and use emotion to actually fire it through. Okay, I've seen people with gravitas understand how to hone the way you disagree. Yeah, Jeff, I think that's right. And again, this is about the confidence to interact with a wide variety of different people, situations and circumstances with confidence. And that whatever somebody is going to say in a meeting, whatever it is, you can deal with it with ease. And so you don't need to get worried. So that whole persona of calm, relaxed, confidence, yeah, okay, and then you start to get the humour coming out. And I think being so relaxed, not so that you're totally chilled out and not caring what's going on, but I think sort of really sort of you can relax and have a little bit of fun and inject a little bit of humour, which is where I want to sort of, I think, start to go now, because again, I'm trying to give you examples of other things that you can do. Again, this is, reminder of the definition: being capable in your role with ease, and I think that's a really important part to get to. Now I've been asking you to do an exercise. I'm conscious that time is progressing quite quickly. What I'd like you to do is to pop into the question box right now, those of you that are listening that have been doing exercise 1, what is the most striking thing you notice about what the disaster areas are doing? And all the role models, the people who are, gravitas personified. And I'm going to wait a little bit because I want you to process this. I want you to pick out what is it that really stands out for you. So what are the standout qualities that they've got? What is the evidence that somebody has really got a huge amount of gravitas? I'm looking for the leaders in the race for the coaching session to come through. I think Judith dropped out because she had to attend to something else. But Karen, what do you notice in these people? What is it that are the real standout qualities? Okay, lack of consistency in how they show up. Jeff has put in. And I think that lack of consistency is really important, because if you think about it, trust and confidence in other people, you've got to know what's going to happen and what you can expect to have happen from people. Oh, we've got more coming through. Lack of gravitas related to personality and character, insecurity, and thank you, Anne, and lack of confidence. Do you know what? I think it is, but I'm gonna sort of slightly disagree with you, and I think it's about the way we build our character. And I think it's wherever we start from, wherever we are now, I think all of those things can be evolved. Gravitas disaster, senior manager panicking. Do you know what? Panicking during a crisis and overreacting, not. I think, Chris, you're absolutely right. And I think in a leadership role, when you're trying to demonstrate that you are capable, you've got to have that. You've got to have things under control, or at the very least, you've got to appear to have everything under control, and personally know how to get it under control in order to be able to sort of demonstrate that gravitas. Disaster models, indecision. And I think it's decisiveness is a really, really important part of all of this, is actually making very clear decisions, understanding what it is. And this is great. Thank you, Chris. Caroline, keep changing their mind on issues and what to be done. So maybe we're starting to move to the position now where we can look at what you need to do, because it is very important that we've been talking about role models and disaster zone and some of the characteristics, but in your environment, there's two sides to this as far as I'm concerned. And this is where we get to exercise 2, where I'd like you to now start to note down 2 things and maybe 2 columns. What do you need to stop doing? And what do you need to start doing in order to do 2 things? And I'm going to go through these one at a time. Firstly, be confident, because I think that internal sense of confidence, as you may have seen in some of my articles, is mission critical to give you the base on which to then display confidence and to create that impression that you've got everything under control. This isn't about papering over the cracks. This isn't about hiding who you are. This is about, number 1, getting very, very confident in what it is you are there to do. So this will be exercise number 2. And here are some ideas, and as I'm going through, relating back to the role models and the disaster zones and what we've been talking about so far, some of the ideas, and I want you to jot down what you can stop doing and start doing as I'm talking about these things. The first thing, and this sort of relates to, I think it was either Jeff or Chris saying earlier on about building character and strong integrity. That sense of consistency provides other people, other observers, with a sense of assuredness, a sense of reliability that you can cut it, you can do it. You're not gonna, as we would say in the UK, throw all your toys out of the pram, or for the US friends we've got here, the stroller. It's a unique UK term that I think my friends over here will appreciate. Let's move on. Strive to be exceptional at what you do. And this is really where you're packing in substance, because if you are exceptionally good at doing your job and potentially the job above, if that's what you're aspiring to, then you're going to have that base of confidence. And I've met a lot of people, and there's an article that I can point you to afterwards where they're really confident in a technical area or a particular part of the business, and then they are asked to go and run another part of the business, and suddenly all their confidence evaporates because they don't know the technical detail, which is understandable, but it's not excusable. And by that, what I mean is what people have got to do is shift the base of their confidence away from their technical knowledge, their content specialism, to their processes of inquiry, to how they actually make decisions. And for that, it doesn't matter what the content is, you've got very clear processes, you've got total confidence that if you put the right data in, you're going to get the right data out, irrespective of what that data is. You can go through and help other people step through that emerging process. So you don't, in my view, have to be a specialist in everything to be able to be really confident in getting the result. And this whole thing about reputation, we were doing this on another course. I'll tell you a little bit about that a little bit later. But, you've got to actually be very proactive in managing your reputation with the right people. Remember, we've got to be talking about who it is. Be fair with your dealings with others, and this is growing that respect. You might have to do things that they don't like, but if you are retaining their respect by explaining the why and being empathetic and understanding in the process, I think you're far more likely to convey the sort of impression of having that presence and that gravitas. And using power with transparency, I think, is also a very, very important part of becoming more confident, because as you acquire power on the way up, and look at the other videos and webinars that I do on what power actually is and how it works to understand it, but don't hide it away. Use it for the good of the people in your audience, in the population that you want to believe in you, that to have the confidence in you. Here are some more. Learning exactly what your job requires. What is it that you're there to do? And this is an important one. Have some way of recognizing when you've got there, because confidence is an internal thing that you have. Other people can have confidence in you, but for you, it's sort of what's going to prove to you that you really know your stuff. What's going to prove to you that you can handle anything that comes, come what may, with ease. What is that evidence criteria? So dare I say it, even write that down. So what requirement do you need to see? What evidence do you need to see to say, okay, you've made it, you can do it, you can handle it? Because once you believe it, then that will start to ooze out and create the right sort of impression that you want. And strengths and weaknesses, and we talked about asking for help earlier on, but I think it's really important that you know when you can be confident and when you really shouldn't be confident, and therefore take additional action. And finally here, and again, if this is sparking other ideas that are not on the slide, please do put them into the comment box, looking for the engagement. Or maybe if this is provoking any questions, please do make sure and put them into the questions. I'll stop in a moment and have another look. Base confidence on real substance. There was a lot in the past, and I think it's easing now, where people will put on a front, pretend to be confident. But there's a warning that I've got for you, because if you are doing that, the people below you will be fooled, but the people above you won't. And they will be able to tell that you're not really confident, that you're just putting an act on. And well, are you trying to mislead them? And that doesn't help on the trust. It doesn't help on the confidence. So this is why I think you've got to be really clear about where you are confident and where you're not, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, because the people above you probably will see it. And so you need to have that honest, fair dealings. Look, I've never done this before. This is what I need to do. Here's my process of inquiry. I need this from you, that from you. Okay, let's see how it goes. Fine, you're developing, you're moving forward, but you're doing it in a very deliberate, conscious way. And I think that's a really important point. And this whole thing about confidence and arrogance. So come on, how have you been reacting to this? I'm just going to pause for a moment, swap over and have a look at what you've been putting in, and hopefully you've been putting in loads. And I hope this is working from you, being consistent. I like the balance between confidence and arrogance. Good, thank you, Julie. The problem is, I think we get taught this certainly in some cultures where you have to put on that front, you have to put on that face, but sooner or later that's going to fall away. And the idea, the fake it till you make it brigade, what they're saying is if you pretend long enough, you'll stretch towards that. And there isn't, I do agree with that to a certain extent, but you've also got to be aware of in the heat of fire, in the exchanges that are going on when the temperature is high, your risk of exposure is really, really big, particularly at senior level. So you've got to be very clear. And if you are erring towards the arrogant side, I mean, you've got to be super confident, but not arrogant. Arrogance, in the definition of it, is unreasonable confidence. Unrealistic confidence in one's ability, which is more of a hope and an aspiration, perhaps, than anything sort of substantive. And it's a substance that is really, really important here. So, what else are you saying? I'm just going to see if I can get some. Makes me think of struggles with technical experts and move into managerial roles. Karen, you're absolutely right. And, particularly in the political world, in the socio-political environment that managerial and leadership work needs to get done, people have got to step away from that technical base of confidence into a socio-political realm of confidence, which is a lot of big words for saying you've got to completely look at it in a different way and become calm, confident, fluid, capable, competent at interacting with a very diverse group of people and being able to stand your ground. Comes to mind is the need to stop rushing about and be more relaxed. It is, Scott, because and I notice this a lot. I mean, people going up, it links back to something Judith was saying about asking for help earlier on, because we're almost, a lot of us have been told you need to get feedback. You need to have people tell you how you're doing, whether it worked or whether it didn't in a particular meeting. And we're always looking to our directors for advice and help and, positive affirmations and, development areas. And it's a bit controversial, but in many coaching sessions, what I'm talking to people is about stop it. Stop asking for this feedback because you're making it. And there comes a point, I believe, in people's career where they've got to actually trust their process of gaining what we call intrinsic feedback, being able to sense when it's working and when it's not, which is flying in the face of a lot of perceived wisdom in the development communities. But hell, I'm not just like everybody else. And I believe as you're moving up, as you're growing in confidence, super confidence, the amount of feedback you actually need from people is reducing. And the quicker the more relaxed you are, and also the less you are trying to prove to other people that you can do what you say you're going to do, that you can actually deliver. And I think it's when people stop trying to convince people that the magic starts to happen and things start to really, really click together. So thank you for that, Scott. Recognising the most important job. Yeah, I mean, it's an important point. Jeff's making the point about being recognising that the most important job you have is the one you have now. Master it. I agree with that, Jeff, to a particular point, but on the promotion stakes, what a lot of people are doing is for you to prove you can do the next job up without giving you the job. And they won't promote you, it seems. They won't promote you until you can prove you can do what you haven't been asked to do yet. So in a way, part of developing presence and gravitas, I believe, is actually being able to adopt the behavioural characteristics, the mindset of the next level up, to bestow in their minds the confidence that if they promote you, you can do it, that you will be able to do it. Yeah, there may be a few wobbles to begin with, but broadly you're ready. And I think it's yes, you are ready, which is what I think most people need to be driving towards and aiming for. Right, I'm going to stop there because what I want to do now is just touch on demonstrating confidence, because it's one thing to work on making sure you are confident, but you also need to be able to convey it. And a lot of people are really confident, but they don't show it. And maybe that might be down to mannerisms or habits or whatever. You've got to clean up your act. And if you've got the confidence, you've got to be able to show it. So using very firm and positive language is a key thing you need to be doing. Being very clear, making clear decisions, unequivocal, where people know where they stand. They certainly know where you stand and they know why. being crisp and clear and concise. I mean, this whole thing about verbal communication, one of the reasons why actually we really want people to write things down is because it helps to distill what's going on in the mind into a few sentences. And once people are asked to one sentence to describe what you want to have happen here, it's the discipline. And if you can do that on a regular basis and make it part of your skill set to be able to find the right words at the right time and only a few of them to get the right effect, then you're really starting to demonstrate and convey to others that you're confident. And I think slow down, which is something that I need to learn more about. But hey, I want to share a lot of information with you guys. Let people come to you. And I think this is a great one for promotion and moving up, is that, we want to solve problems, we want to help people, we want to do this, that or the other. And, we're always sort of seeming to be out there pushing for other people. But if you're really confident, you've got control of your remit and your responsibilities. Stop trying to chase down other people so much. Stop trying to go to them. Let them come to you. And I think get into the power side of this and look at where the power is and what makes you powerful, and start to believe that you've got the power that you actually have. And most people who are rushing around trying to prove themselves, trying to get up, they're trying too hard quite often. And I think that's a really important point that you need to internalize that one. And it's a difficult one, but the more you learn about power, the better. Be unwavering in your purpose, and I like that, purpose and your decision making. Make your expectations unambiguous and openly acknowledge your shortcomings, because there's nothing wrong with not knowing or having a gap. Nobody's perfect. And I think part of this whole notion of gravitas is the humility. And it's talked about under the banner of leadership quite a lot, is actually being quite humble, because people can connect more effectively with it. Obviously, it's not sharing vulnerabilities that will damage you, that will make you look incapable of doing what it is you're being asked to do, but it is an important point. And that humor, the fluidity, all of those are really important things, and maintaining appropriate eye contact, not staring people down, but and not totally avoiding them, but inappropriate, which is the fluidity that you need to build in a social context, is another key part here. So I think I'm almost about out, because what I want to do now is think about, well, what next for you? And what I'd like to do as we start to wrap this up is again go back to the comments box, and hopefully you've been taking some notes and thinking about the whole topic about developing your gravitas. Can you give me some idea of what you're taking away from this? What is it you're going to do differently in order to move forward from wherever you are now to wherever you want to go? So please do give me some examples, and these will be just first names only when I share them. So no fear of anybody else seeing what it is you're putting down. And David, maybe this is a cue for if I've missed anything, or if you want to sort of come in. So if anybody's got further thoughts, continue to do this. Prepare for situations to ensure that I appear confident. Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think that's a really important one, and it goes back to the point that I was making earlier on about what does it take. Somebody's going to slow down and be more deliberate. Yeah, and actually when you do start to slow down, actually a lot of the problems go away, a lot of the busyness starts to almost evaporate, and you can look back and think, why was I so stressed? And it's about control. Once you've got control and people can see you've got that control, everything starts to calm down and you become much more productive. Be aware when I don't feel in control, and breathe. I think that's another really important point, because the physiology, the way we are reacting to things is a really important aspect of what slips out. And if you're not feeling, this is why I'm so keen, you've got to build the confidence. You can't just pretend. The reason why I'm saying that is because there will be people who can observe you. I've been around the block a few times, and I've got quite a lot of experience in developing people, and I can see when it's being put on. I can see very clearly when people are masquerading as something that they're not, confident when they're not really. So do yourself a favour and make sure you really are confident, to minimise those physical reactions. I once got asked to train, if I could train people not to sweat in a negotiation, and I said, absolutely no way. That's not something that we should be doing. What we need to be doing is is getting your negotiators absolutely super confident based on they've got the right information, they know what they're doing, and they know what the game plan is, so they don't need to sweat it. And that's really what we need to do. Okay, what else have we got here? Practice speaking clearly and concisely. Do you know what? That's from Caroline. This whole thing about the way we talk to other people, you do it at work, you do it at home, you do it with your friends. Start to change that. And if you are interested in the speaking, I'm gonna make this recommendation because I think this woman is somebody you really need to be listening to if you want to work on the way you are using your voice. And it's a lady by the name of Colin Gautrey who has written and produced the Gravitas method. And you go and search it on Google, and you can buy an audio series for, I think it's £50 or something like that. It is a really good investment if you want to get better at the way you breathe, the way you use your words, the way you are dialoguing with other people, and the way you are creating that sense of presence. And yeah, I keep forgetting it too. So but hell, I'm still me and I'm still human. So hopefully you can bear with that. Dressed for the role is somebody else saying. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Stop my verbal and non-verbal messages in terms of being excessively. I've got to expand that. Excessively serious. Yeah, because if you are really confident, you can relax and have a little bit of a joke or an appropriate amount of humour, not too far, because you can relax. And actually by being able to do that, you're conveying you know what you're about, you know what you're doing, and you don't need to be. Yeah, yes, it is a serious business and there are serious things you got to do, but you don't have to be too serious all the time. It's so boring anyway. Right, I'm going to stop there. David, are you still on the call? David Wilson. And if you want to come in with any other observations before I finish with how to increase your impact.
Just a delightful observation that, gosh, isn't your audience pretty powerful set of individuals? You've got this nailed, guys. This is delightful. I've been going through and just capturing the themes and looking for what's come out, see what Colin's missed. But gosh, I think you've got it all. And this, I was going to summarize to you for an extent, but actually I don't need to, because what you've come back with in terms of what you're going to do next, you've got it. So yeah, I hope that's been useful. Any clarification? Do throw a question in at the last minute while Colin wraps up, and either I can answer it or pick up and make sure we come back to you on that.
Okay, and this has been that's great, David, and I'm glad I've not been able to miss too much, because if you've been to my webinars before, I don't normally do it like this, so it's a little bit of a departure from the normal frame. But I hope you've appreciated it, and I hope you found it useful. And please do give me the feedback. I am going to ask for some feedback because it's the first time that I've done it in this style, so I need to learn a little bit more and get a bit of insight from you guys. But judging by the amount of engagement, I think it's going to be quite tough to decide who's going to get the free coaching session, but a little bit more of that later, because what I want to finish on is to tell you a little bit more about increasing the impact and impression that you've created. And I know some people on the call have already signed up for this, but we're just creating a new mini course called Building a Powerful Reputation. It's in recognition from the vast number of people that have corresponded with me saying they're being ignored, overlooked and taken for granted. So we're pulling together a range of modules, and the first one is being released as we speak, actually, to actually start to begin to take stock of where you are. But this is in answer to the need to become more influential, basically, to create a powerful impact, a powerful impression in the minds of your audience and the chosen group that you want to impress in a very deliberate way. And most people make their reputations and impressions by accident. This course is about making it a very deliberate act. So if you found this useful, this might be really good for you. But it's a combination of, the first time around we're going to be doing live webinars, video tutorials, and more importantly lots of exercises to help you land the ideas and the concepts, and we're going to a lot of detail on it. So please do go across and have a look at that. We are up against it because of not only the time right now and your time, but we are putting a deadline on this, and I'm going to slip through. This is the sort of thing that we're hoping it's going to be able to deliver for you, giving you a little bit more control. more, but you can get onto this program today for $150, and that price is going to be there until the end of the year UK time, so 23.59 on the 30th, because that's when we're really wrapping it up, and that price is going to go up to $200 next week. So if you get in now, and the other thing that if you get in now, you will also get email support, so you can do an exercise, send it in to us, and we'll hopefully respond within 24 hours. But go to the link below. You've probably seen some of it before. This is something that I'm really excited about, and already we've got a lot of great people with a variety of different situations and positions that they're in that are already starting to benefit from this. So it would be great if you could join me on this, and we'll have a bit of fun and hopefully do a few more webinars just like this one, assuming the feedback's good. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to end there in respect for your time, and please do stay in touch. See you soon.